And Elsie and anyone else who this might help had asked me, how do you imagine for something that you never experienced? But kids do it all the time when they see things that interest them, like watching their parents and then going during playtime playing house, or sometimes a kid goes to a doctor and sometimes they'll play doctor, but they don't actually know what it's like to be a parent, to have a kid, or to be a doctor. So sometimes we have to think like a kid and remember how it is to be imaginative. But for me, sometimes when I wanted to imagine to be somewhere I never was, but I felt something, I wanted to be somewhere and it didn't feel possible for one reason or another, I would just fill myself with all kinds of stimulation, especially online, from photos to videos to music, sometimes buying products from that country like a wine and drinking it and feeling I'm drinking in the essence of that country. And when we're thinking as the dream, as being just solely a human, it might not sound possible. How can I imagine to be somewhere that I'm not? But we're learning to think more mystically and realizing that we have a connection to everything. And if we see through the eyes of what the mystics are saying, that all that we're experiencing outside is actually inside, and it's just something we have to get used to and remind ourselves so we don't go back to kind of the limited human thinking. But if we remind ourselves that, okay, if this is a reflection outside, then this place I want to journey to, I'm thinking that it's outside of me and that I don't know it. But the truth is, it's within you and you know it and you can tap into it by just asking those questions. How would it feel to be where you want to be, or to be with who you want to be, or whatever it is? And a feeling comes up, because everything stems, as the mystics say, from imagination. But we often forget this and think more kind of lost in our dream, entangled, that we're only this limited human and things are on the outside and we're not connected to it. It seems weird to think everything comes from within. Outside is a reflection of within, the consciousness, the thoughts, the feelings. So you feel and believe, because of this feeling, that you're separate from these things, and thus that distance, that feeling, perpetuates it. So sometimes in watching, photos or videos, or if someone wants a car, they go test drive it, one is able to start to loosen up that limitation, that distance, and to be able to catch the feeling more, sometimes using these tools or props. Ultimately, though, as we gain experiences and confidence, and as we start to get more skilled in imagining, and we find what works for us, whether it's affirmations or scripts or imaginary conversations or intentional daydreams, fantasies, or just being able to feel that it's done, in the meantime, we sometimes use these props and tools until we can throw them all away. You remember a time when Neville was trying to go to Barbados in the beginning, and it was hard for him to believe that he was already there. When his teacher Abdullah would tell him, Neville, you want to be there, you're already there. And Neville, of course, would do what Abdullah said, which is when he would walk out on the streets to just catch the feeling that you're not in New York City, you're in Barbados, and all the things, sights and sounds and scent that he would experience if he was in Barbados. And for a long time, we saw how Neville would talk about, for him, the best thing that worked was the imaginary conversations. Because I believe with the affirmations, I think Neville felt a lot of people would just say them without the feeling and not get success. Although there are people who do have success with affirmations, but there are a lot of people who don't quite get everything they want. Now, with the imaginary conversation, it moves you more into, for most people, to have a stronger feeling, to be able to connect, especially persisted. And sometimes Neville taught, for things that you're still having trouble getting, that seem bigger, go deeper. So he would start to teach about, in a sense, meditation, or identifying with the unconditioned self, the I am. Not that I am a woman or I am Lila, but before all that, just that energy, that consciousness, before the body, before all the things we color ourselves with, supposedly through imagination, which have manifested what we see, hear, and experience now. And then from here, when one starts to feel that relaxation and that expansion of just being free of the different limiting beliefs and concepts we place on ourselves, this is where Neville would say to in a sense, have an intentional daydream or fantasy, or if someone can take it to the point of like a lucid dream, although it's not necessary to manifest. And at the very end, before Neville started to get more into the promise and not so much about getting things in the dream of life, reality, Neville said that he would just go to bed and he would think about the different things people asked him to imagine for them, or anything he wanted. By that time, he pretty much had the status quo, all that he needed or wanted, and he would just go to bed without really even having to imagine anything. He just would just catch that feeling, it's done, and that was enough. And ultimately, we too will reach that point as well as wanting to go beyond just getting things, but knowing what we are, and in that being something that totally satisfies us, that a lot of these material or emotional things that we look for in the dream of life we think will give us lasting happiness often don't. But we find that it's something that we already are, and when we start to be interested and look into that, then we can truly have everything, and then the dream of life just becomes icing on the cake. So you know the wonder of what you are, and yet you also get to play, but you don't get lost in the play and suffer.